The air crackled, fireworks boomed. It was the 4th of July, a night for celebration, a night for freedom. But beneath the joyous facade, a sinister current ran through the festivities. This was a night when shadows danced, and whispers turned into screams. These are the stories of those who dared to confront the darkness lurking beneath the star-spangled banner. These are tales of terror, whispered around campfires and shared in hushed tones. They serve as a chilling reminder that even on the most patriotic of holidays, evil finds a way to celebrate. Tonight, we delve into the heart of Americana and unearth the horrors that hide beneath. The campfire crackled, casting dancing shadows against the trees. The flames flickered and swayed, creating an almost hypnotic dance that seemed to tell stories of old. The shadows of the trees loomed large, their branches like skeletal fingers reaching out into the night. I was alone, miles from civilization, embracing the solitude of the wilderness. The isolation was both a comfort and a challenge, a chance to reconnect with nature and myself. The vast expanse of the forest stretched out in every direction, a sea of darkness punctuated only by the occasional glimmer of moonlight filtering through the canopy. The only sounds were the chirping crickets and the distant pops of fireworks celebrating Independence Day in some distant town. The contrast between the festive explosions and the serene stillness of the woods was stark, a reminder of the world I had temporarily left behind. Each pop and crackle of the fireworks seemed to echo through the trees, a distant celebration that felt worlds away. I breathed in the crisp night air, a sense of peace settling over me. The scent of pine and earth was invigorating, grounding me in the present moment. The cool breeze whispered through the leaves, carrying with it the secrets of the forest. It was a moment of tranquility, a rare and precious gift in a world that often felt chaotic and overwhelming. Then, I heard it. A twig snapping. The sound was sharp and sudden, breaking the stillness like a crack of thunder. It was a small noise, but in the silence of the night it felt magnified, amplified by the darkness that surrounded me. A rustle in the underbrush. The sound was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it sent a shiver down my spine. It was as if the forest itself was alive, watching and waiting. The rustling grew louder, more insistent, as if something was moving closer, hidden just out of sight. My head snapped up, scanning the darkness beyond the reach of my firelight. The beam of my flashlight cut through the night, revealing only more shadows and darkness. My heart raced as I searched for the source of the noise, my mind conjuring images of unseen creatures lurking just beyond the edge of the light. "Hello?" I called out, my voice echoing through the stillness. Silence. The word hung in the air, unanswered, swallowed by the night. The silence was deafening, a void that seemed to stretch on forever. I strained to hear any response, any sign that I was not alone, but there was nothing. I tried to ignore the prickle of unease crawling up my spine. The feeling was persistent, a nagging sense that something was not right. I told myself it was just my imagination, that the isolation and darkness were playing tricks on my mind. But the unease remained, a constant companion in the night. Probably just a raccoon, I told myself. But the noises continued. The rustling, the snapping twigs, the sense of being watched. It all felt too deliberate, too intentional. I tried to convince myself that it was just a curious animal, but the fear gnawed at me, refusing to be dismissed. Footsteps, heavy, deliberate footsteps circling my campsite. Each step was measured, purposeful, as if someone or something was stalking me. The sound was unmistakable, a rhythmic crunch of leaves and twigs underfoot. My breath caught in my throat as I listened, my mind racing with possibilities. My heart pounded in my chest. The fear was palpable, a physical presence that seemed to wrap around me like a vice. Each beat of my heart echoed in my ears, a relentless drumbeat that matched the rhythm of the footsteps. I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead, my body tensing with every sound. I grabbed the hunting knife I had brought with me, gripping it tightly. The handle was cool and reassuring in my hand, a small comfort in the face of the unknown. I held it close, ready to defend myself if necessary. The blade glinted in the firelight, a sharp reminder of the danger that lurked in the darkness. The firelight flickered, casting grotesque shapes in the darkness. The shadows twisted and contorted, taking on forms that seemed almost human. Each flicker of the flames brought new shapes, new figures that danced at the edge of my vision. It was as if the darkness itself was alive, shifting and changing with every heartbeat. I felt a presence, something watching me from the shadows. The sensation was intense, a prickling awareness that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. I scanned the darkness, my eyes straining to see what was hidden just out of sight. The feeling was undeniable, a certainty that I was not alone. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced through me. It was a primal fear, a deep-seated instinct that told me to run, to escape, but I was rooted to the spot, unable to move, trapped by the darkness and the unknown. The fear was overwhelming, a tidal wave that threatened to drown me. I was no longer alone. The realization hit me like a physical blow, a sudden and undeniable truth. Something was out there, watching, waiting. I could feel its presence, a dark and malevolent force that seemed to close in around me. The night was no longer a place of peace and solitude. It had become a realm of fear and uncertainty. The moving truck rumbled up the driveway, its headlights illuminating the faded grandeur of the old Victorian house. The beams of light cut through the darkness, casting eerie shadows that danced across the weathered facade. The house seemed to groan in response, as if awakening from a long slumber. My parents had found it, a steal, they said. They were thrilled by the prospect of restoring it to its former glory. Their eyes sparkling with excitement as they pored over the listing online. They saw potential where I saw decay. A fixer-upper with good bones on top of Patriots Hill. I wasn't so sure. The house had an air of abandonment, a sense of history that felt more like a burden than a blessing. It stood alone, isolated, as if it had secrets it was reluctant to share. The house loomed over us, its paint peeling, its windows like vacant eyes. It was as if the house itself was watching us, judging us. The dark windows seemed to follow our every move, and the creaking of the old wood under our feet felt like whispers of the past. We moved in just before the 4th of July. The timing seemed perfect to my parents, a fresh start in a new home coinciding with the nation's celebration of independence. They were eager to make new memories, to fill the house with laughter and life. The town was alive with excitement, parades and picnics planned. Red, white, and blue decorations adorned every street corner, and the air was filled with the sounds of children playing and the smell of barbecues. It was a stark contrast to the somber atmosphere of our new home. But the festive atmosphere couldn't penetrate the oppressive gloom that clung to our new home. It was as if the house was a world apart, untouched by the joy and celebration outside. The walls seemed to absorb the light, leaving the rooms dim and shadowy. The air inside felt heavy, stagnant. It was thick with dust and the weight of years gone by. Every step we took stirred up particles that danced in the faint beams of sunlight that managed to filter through the grimy windows. And there was a smell, faint but persistent, like damp earth and something else. Something metallic. It was a scent that seemed to cling to the walls, a reminder of the house's long and possibly troubled history. One night I stumbled upon a hidden room in the attic. I had been exploring, trying to familiarize myself with the labyrinthine layout of the house. The door was concealed behind a stack of old boxes, its presence betrayed only by a faint outline in the dust. Dust-covered furniture filled the space and cobwebs hung from every corner. The room felt forgotten, a relic of a time long past. The furniture was draped in white sheets, ghostly shapes that loomed in the dim light. But what chilled me to the bone was the wall at the far end. It was unlike anything I had ever seen, a collage of memories that seemed to tell a story of its own. It was covered in faded newspaper clippings, all dated July 4th, spanning decades. Each clipping was a snapshot of a different time, a different story, but they all shared the same date. It was as if the house had been a silent witness to countless 4th of July celebrations, each one leaving its mark. And beneath each one, scrawled in a spidery hand, were the words, "Gone, but not forgotten." The handwriting was shaky, almost desperate, as if the writer had been compelled to leave a message for anyone who might find it. A shiver ran down my spine. The room felt colder, the air heavier. It was as if the house itself was trying to communicate, to share its secrets with me. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was not alone, that the house was watching, waiting. What had happened in this house? And what did it have to do with Independence Day? The questions swirled in my mind, each one more unsettling than the last. I knew I had to find out, to uncover the truth behind the house on Patriots Hill, but I also knew that some secrets are better left buried. The air hung thick and heavy with humidity, the kind that clings to your skin and makes every breath feel like you're inhaling water. It was the kind of night where the mist seemed to wrap around you, whispering secrets of the forest into your ears. The scent of pine needles mixed with an undercurrent of fear. We stood at the edge of the clearing, a ragtag group of thrill-seekers, our faces illuminated by the dying light of the day. The forest loomed ahead, a dark, impenetrable wall of trees that seemed to swallow the last rays of sunlight. The dying embers of our bonfire cast flickering shadows that danced like phantoms. Devil's Playground. Locals called it that for a reason. They said it was haunted, cursed by the spirits of those who had died there. The stories were as old as the trees themselves, passed down through generations like a dark family heirloom. We of course didn't believe them. We were teenagers, invincible in our own minds, fueled by adrenaline and the reckless abandon that comes with youth. The idea of a haunted forest was thrilling, a challenge to be conquered rather than a warning to be heeded. It was the 4th of July, a night meant for fireworks and celebration. But we were looking for a different kind of thrill. Dare night, someone slurred, his words thick with alcohol. The idea had been tossed around earlier in the evening, growing more appealing with each drink. We all knew the rules. Draw a dare from the hat, complete it, or face the consequences. Simple. Stupid maybe. But that was the point. It was a test of courage, a way to prove ourselves to each other and to the dark, whispering forest that surrounded us. The hat was passed around, each of us drawing a slip of paper with trembling hands. The dares ranged from the mundane to the terrifying, each one a potential story to be told and retold in the years to come. My turn came, and I reached into the hat, my fingers brushing against the crumpled paper. I unfolded my dare, the words scrawled in messy handwriting. Spend 5 minutes alone in the abandoned cabin. Easy enough, I thought, trying to ignore the tremor in my hand. The cabin stood at the edge of the woods, dark and silent, a relic of a time long past. I made my way to the cabin, each step feeling heavier than the last. The door creaked open on rusty hinges, revealing a blackness so complete it felt like a living thing. I stepped inside, my heart pounding against my ribs. The air was thick with the smell of decay and something else, something cloying and sweet. The darkness seemed to press in on me, wrapping around me like a suffocating blanket. I fumbled for my flashlight, the beam cutting through the blackness like a knife. The cabin was small, barely more than a single room, but it felt like a labyrinth of shadows and whispers. The floorboards creaked under my weight, each step echoing in the silence. I could feel the eyes of my friends on my back, their laughter and shouts muffled by the walls of the cabin. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. 5 minutes. I could do this. The seconds ticked by, each one stretching into an eternity. The darkness seemed to shift and move as if it were alive. I could hear my own heartbeat, loud and insistent in the silence. And then I heard it. A low, guttural growl coming from the far corner of the room. My blood ran cold. This was no dare. This was something far more sinister. I turned the flashlight towards the sound, the beam trembling in my hand. The growl grew louder, more menacing, and I could see a pair of eyes gleaming in the darkness. They were too high off the ground to belong to any animal I knew. Panic surged through me, and I took a step back, my mind racing. The growl turned into a snarl, and I could see the outline of a figure emerging from the shadows. It was tall, impossibly tall, and its eyes burned with an unnatural light. I stumbled backwards, my flashlight flickering. This was no ghost story. This was real, and it was coming for me.